Are you willing to fight for what you want to reset in your life? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods talking about how to improve your life one small step at a time. Do you need a course correction? Maybe not a reinvention, maybe not a dramatic exit from something like your job or, some relationship you're in. Not this moment where you sell everything and move to Montana, but maybe you just want a reset. Maybe you just want something very quiet. This is Jill from the Northwoods talking about how to improve your life one small step at a time. When you think about what you want out of the next 10 years of your life, what does it look like? How does it look differently from the last 10 years of your life? And not theoretically, but I mean practically. At the next stage of your life, I'm someone who's looking at the next stage of my life, and I'm trying to figure out what is it I want from that next decade? What is it that I had in the past that I didn't have? What we're trying to measure is not some sort of a fantasy kind of thing. Like when I want to, read 100 books and I want to write a novel, and we think of these things that are fantasy things that we want in our lives. Someone said, what is it? A goal without a plan is just a fantasy. There's probably a better way of saying that. There's another way of saying that. What we're trying to do is measure actual trajectory. When we change our trajectory, that's when actual behavior changes. When we desire something, not this dreamy sort of, I'd love to write a book someday. I would love to, be in a play someday. I would love to, whatever it is you have. What we're trying to do is we're talking about the direction that we're committed in, whether it's an ethical commitment, whether it's working towards a goal, being committed to that goal. And the question is always, how badly do you want that? Are you willing to do the things that you need to do? And I mean in an ethical way, right? I don't mean to rob a bank. I don't mean to do anything bad about it. But are you willing to commit yourself to whatever hard work it takes for you to do that? We are the sum total of our actions. We're the sum total of the things we do. And when we have dreamy goals in life, it's about repointing our trajectory to a new thing, repointing our focuses to another thing. You don't need to become someone else, and you don't need to burn your life down for most of your goals. What you want is a reset of the direction you're taking. And a lot of times when people try to do some kind of a reset in their lives, like I said, new job, new city, new relationships, extreme diet, I'm going to exercise every day of my life and I'm never going to, give in. Maybe I'm going to change my personality. I'm going to quit drinking tomorrow. And then 3 months later, they're exhausted, they're tired, and maybe there's chaos now in their lives. I've seen some people who decided to move, I just want to live in a different part of the world, and they're miserable right now. And I'm not saying moving to another part of the world will make you miserable, but they wanted a change and they picked probably the wrong change. A reset in your life is more, like I said, realigning things, more realigning to your goals. And you sort of ask yourself that question, where have I drifted from the things that I've wanted in my life? Where have I been passive when I should have been active, doing things? Or am I not steering my life anymore? Or maybe you're just not steering your life anymore. You're a leaf on the wind, you're not in control, you just let things happen. You go in whatever direction you just need to happen. I mean, that's really what I felt like in my 30s. I was poor, I had no savings, I had no retirement plans. I could take a vacation, but I always went into debt for it. My weight was not going down. And I wasn't steering my life. I was just letting things happen to me. And instead, what we need to do is this gentle but firm readjustment in our lives. It doesn't have to be intense. You just need to do it consistently, whatever it is that you're looking to do. The problem, I think what we have is that we have a desire for things, but we don't make the decision for things. In your 20s, I think we feel all full of desire. I want this, I want that, I want to go here, I want to go there. And when you're more like, I think in your 50s, you start realizing that desire is more about resolve. I'm done drifting. I'm done pretending. I'm done waiting for the things I want in my life. I'm done wanting everything in my life to be cheap and easy and cost me nothing. Decision is expensive, not money-wise. Maybe it's money-wise, but not necessarily money-wise. But instead, what we have is different currency. We're not giving up. I don't know. I think people feel like they're giving up their youth if they're not flighty and all over the place, right? What you're going to do, what you need to give up when you're looking at doing these new directions in your life is comfort. Comfort is one of the biggest traps out there. If you're comfortable, it might mean you're not pressing yourself out there. You're not pushing yourself to the uncomfortable places where change actually happens. You have the same excuse over and over again. You have the same emotional avoidances that you've always done. And, say, oh, well, I don't know, getting a new job would be really hard and I like my people, or I'm just going to deal with it later. Those are the things we're going to give up. And that is actually harder in some ways than just giving up our fantasies that we had in our 20s. Because when we start building actual, real actions, habits, behavior patterns, we're going to put roots to them. We're going to build them into the ground so we begin to become firm in them. We're willing to adjust on a daily basis the things that we want to do. Let me give you an example is that I have lost 80 pounds and I'm sitting there thinking, how do I keep these 80 pounds off instead of doing what I did every other time and gain the weight back? And that is me getting out of my comfort zone and going and exercising. Getting out on my bike when I feel like sitting on my couch. That means when I'm upset, I don't eat something that I'm going to regret later, or I'll deal with it later. Okay, well, I'll start exercising next week, next month, that kind of thing. What are you willing to do every day to get the goal you want in your life? Not someday, but tomorrow, today, daily, because that is the kind of reset that actually starts steering our lives into a different place. We want things in our lives. And some of us, like me and my weight, I desperately wanted to lose weight. I desperately wanted it. And there were so many decades in there that I wasn't willing to do the work. I wasn't willing to do the thing I needed to do in order to lose the weight. And so then it never happened. And I was just always mildly disappointed. I guess I didn't lose weight this year. I said this year at New Year's Eve, I was going to lose all this weight and I didn't do it. What a disappointment. But I also didn't do anything to change that. I didn't actually do the things I needed to do. And so this disappointment ended up just being a result of my inaction, of my drifting. Oh, I forgot to exercise. That's my biggest thing. I forget to exercise. Because I can tell you, like right now, it's 5:00, right? And I'm going to get done recording, podcasts today, probably somewhere around 6:00. And then I'll say, oh, it's dinner time. And then all of a sudden it'll be 7:00. And I'm like, it's kind of late. I'm pretty tired. I didn't plan the day. I didn't make a structural thing happen. But instead, you commit yourself to those things. And we want a lot of different things. I know people who want a cabin up north in the woods. Do they do anything to save the money so they can have it? Or I know people who want to have certain kinds of travel in their lives. Are they doing the kinds of things that would allow them to travel like that? We desperately have goals and desires we want for our lives. And the question is, are you really willing to fight with them? I'll give you a different type of fighting too. So I'm a nerd. I'm a tech nerd. I got the iPhone and I do these things. And I asked people at a conference I was speaking at, I said, most of you have the Apple One program. How many of you have ever fired up on your TV, on your iPad, the Apple exercise guide? And, most people hadn't. How many times have you ever put in your task list or your to-do list or reminders to exercise, to do something healthy for yourself? And most of them haven't. I said, it's so funny because if you're like me, we use Apple or if you're Google or whatever technical tools we have, we write checklists for work because we know we have to get things done for work. We write to-do lists. We write project plans. We plan, ahead of time so that this project that is going to take 10 weeks to do, I have to start it out 15 weeks before my boss wants it done, because there's going to be setbacks, right? We do it for work. We do it for everything else in our life that we know we have to do. And yet we don't take these same principles and direct them to our own lives. I was talking to a project manager at my work. I said, well, you guys are so great at planning things. You must have incredibly disciplined lives where you exercise and you eat healthy and you do the things you're supposed to do because you're so good at this. And they go, oh, I don't use my project management tools in my life. No, I don't do that. And that's the question is, are we going to be the kinds of people that take every tool we have, whether it's our iPhone and our computer, our actions, are we going to focus them at our goals? Most people, when they don't get their goals, it's not like they collapse, where they completely fall apart and don't get the thing they wanted to do. They tried to get a new job and they got fired and it was horrible and it was terrible and everything went bad. Instead, usually most people don't get their goals because they drift. Their health drifts, their finances drift, their faith drifts, their energy is all sapped up, their home slowly fills up with stuff, their fitness declines over time, and then they go, well, I'm kind of old. I don't really, I don't want to get fit anymore. And you know what? And the distance grows inside of relationships because they don't work at it. And drift feels harmless because it's so slow. And then 10 years, you realize your health is garbage, your relationships are bad, your finances are terrible, and it's expensive. It's expensive because it took 10 years off of our lives to drift out of there. And when people decide they want to reset, they understand they don't have to change everything about their lives. What they do is they stop drifting. They stop drifting downstream without a paddle. They begin to pay attention to things in their lives. They begin to focus on the things that really matter. Their life moves towards a direction they actually want to go because they're consistently paying attention to it. And the question comes to you, what have you stopped paying attention to? I know for me, I stopped paying attention to my weight. I just ignored it. I took down my mirrors. I have a mirror in my bathroom. That was the only mirror I had because I didn't want to see myself. I stopped paying attention to it. And so here's the real question in here is that when you want to become someone, when you want to become, someone who owns a cabin or someone who exercises every day or someone who has adventures or someone who retires because they saved the money, it begins with character. It begins with grit. It becomes with focusing and paying attention to those things. Whether you want more income, more freedom, better health, a new job, you want better security in your life, what are you willing to do? To get that? What are you not willing to sacrifice to get it? I mean, those are questions you're going to have to ask yourself. And you know that shortcuts will cost you more later. If you take some sort of, like you want a cabin in the woods and you put yourself into debt up to your eyeballs to get that cabin, that's not fighting for that cabin. That is taking a shortcut that is going to make you pay in the end. Cutting corners. And when you do that, it costs a lot, it erodes your peace, and you know that it sort of leaves a residue in your life. Now you're worried about your money because you bought a cabin you couldn't afford, or a car you couldn't afford, or a vacation you couldn't afford. There's something very powerful about saying, in this next chapter of my life, I want this. And I'm going to be strong, and I'm going to do it the right way, and I'm going to do it ethically and with character. I'm going to get clean financially. I'm going to get clean with my relationships. I'm going to get clean spiritually. I've always wanted to learn more about God, and I just don't do it. I'm going to do it. I'm finally going to do it. Those are the things that are going to mean that you are actually not going to pretend to be something that you're not trying to game some sort of a system, that you're not compromising your values for speed, but you're not going to lie to get ahead. You're not going to get a promotion at all costs, even if it means everything against your family. I think in the end, speed is overrated. What matters is that when you have stability and those small habits, they compound on each other. And you will find that you will get to the place that you didn't think you could get to much faster than you can because you have added stability towards your goal much faster. So the question I asked before is, when you're thinking about a reset in life, sometimes it requires subtraction before addition. You have to give up scrolling on your phone. You have to give up watching too much TV. You have to give up eating so much sugar or convenience eating or eating out at restaurants. You have to give up saying yes to everyone. You say yes to everyone and you never get to the things that you want in life because you're ever doing what everyone else wants you to do in life. You're letting your house fill up with stuff. You're avoiding hard conversations. Those are things that people are unwilling to at times give up, but you will need to in order to get what you really want in life. Because every meaningful goal requires friction. It's going to be hard. You're going to be fighting it. And you have to wonder, is that friction worth your future? Is you giving up sugar worth you having a healthy 50s, 60s, and 70s? Is you giving up the garbage spending that you're doing on your budget worth you having peace of mind when you retire? If you want better health, you give up convenience. If you want better finances, you give up the impulse to buy things that are not important in your life. When you want better peace in your life, you have to give up the things that are causing chaos in your life. And if you want better faith, you have to give up passivity and start having an active faith. You don't lose what you protect. If you keep sheltering your bad habits, your unstable behaviors, the things that aren't getting you what you want, you'll never get there. And so you have to stop tending, nurturing those things that are holding you back. And the other part of it too is we have to think about time. Maybe you're in your 50s. You have 30 years of healthy, mostly healthy living ahead of you, right? And it's a whole season. It's a whole lot of time. It is still a whole lot of time. You still have the ability to change your body through consistent walking or exercising. You still have the ability to change your retirement outlook by investing properly in it. You have time to build up your body through strength training and change your mobility. You have time with small spiritual decisions, reading the Bible, doing the things you're supposed to do to change your soul. And you have the ability to clean up your house now before it becomes overwhelming to you and you're kind of too old to deal with it. Reset people often feel very urgent. I think that's why reset's such an important thing, is we start seeing the urgency in our life that we have to actually start acting instead of thinking about it. We're going to start building. We're going to start fixing things. We're going to start sustaining things, do things over time, every day or every week, so that we have sustainable changes in this. I was just talking to someone about my garage and my basement. So I cleaned out this house during the pandemic and put everything I didn't know what to do with in the garage and the basement. And essentially, I have to go through those things now. And now it just feels like a lot of throwing out to do. And sometimes I just don't feel like doing it. But you know what I do? I throw it out, one garbage bin at a week. So I tell myself I have to fill my garbage bin every week. I tell myself that I have to organize one bin, label it, so I know what's in it every week. And it's not a big jump. It's small steps every single week. And you know what? This house is starting to become very organized. And so I think, again, if you're asking yourself, how can I have a reset? How can I change the direction my life is going? What do you have to do? You have to be consistent. What do you have to do? You have to be stable. You have to push forward a little bit every day. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be a big bang thing that all of a sudden one day your house was all cluttered and the next day your house wasn't, or your finances were garbage and the next day your finances are fantastic. What you're trying to do is define exactly what it is you want, define it clearly, write it down, and protect it instead of protecting those things that are keeping you, the noise that is keeping you from your life. And then you have to have the courage to stay, to keep going, to not quit, to not burn it all down, to not run away from it or ignore it entirely. When you're uh, stable like that, or not changing your mind every 3 years, and you're stable and you're looking at the thing and you're focused on it and you're dedicated to it, you're going to get there. Maybe you don't leave the job, but you improve your skills. Maybe you stay in your marriage or your relationship, but start rebuilding that connection back again. You stay in the house that is annoying you. I had friends of mine. They wanted to sell their house, and they fixed everything in their house. They got this done and that done, and all of a sudden they were like, "Well, now that we got all this stuff done, this house is actually pretty cool because everything's working in it. New furnace, the new door in the front door, new windows, those kinds of things." But maybe instead of selling the house and moving to a new town, you clean and organize the house and you start making roots in the town that you're in. Or instead of being the way your faith is today, where it's just sort of weak and you don't really know what God wants, maybe you start to deepen that too. Consistency is so underrated in our world. Staying and steering against the waves instead of running away or ignoring it, that's what will get you what you want. And so the question comes in exactly where I started this. How badly do you want something? Do you want it badly enough to do something daily? To focus on something weekly? To review how your progress is going monthly? Do you want to clean one drawer at a time? Turn off the news, turn off the TV show, stop doom scrolling, read one chapter of the Bible, pray consistently? What is it you want? And it's really unsexy and it's really boring. But instead, it's predictable and effective when you do something reliably, consistently. So you don't need a new life. You don't even need massive change. You might need just a slightly new direction, a daily movement. How bad do you want the reset? What are you willing to do for it? And what are you willing to give up for it? And you don't have to rush. You don't have to panic, but you have to move, and you have to move today, one small step at a time. All right, everyone, thanks so much. I appreciate you watching and listening. I hope you're doing well. Please know that you can email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. You can tell me what it is that you're struggling with. And if you want an episode about something, I'm happy to do that as well. Thanks so much. Have a great day.